First question is from Adam Makes Beer via email. I emailed Imperial Yeast. If you have not checked them out, imperialyeast.com. Good people, nay, great people. I think the child's coming into the room. Hello. I'm saying it. Great people, great yeast over at Imperial. I love to hit up their lab people with questions. In particular, I have been chatting with Alex from Imperial. Oh no, wait. Am I messing up that name? I'm a little bit scattered, so maybe that's not the name, but customer service lab dude from Imperial. I will remember, but I think it's Alec. He has a Magnum PI level mustache and wears it like a man. Okay, so I have. If you follow me on the old Instagram, you saw me hold up a Spunding valve. And I am currently in possession, and not at this moment, but at the brewery, I have a Spunding valve in my possession, and I'm going to start messing around with it. I have a Pilsner that I'm going to be making a few days from now, and this is going to be the first beer that I utilize Spunding with. And let me just read the question that I sent Alex, and we'll go from there. Another one for you. I'm going to utilize a Spunding valve for a Pils I'm making next week with a new pitch of Harvest from you. See, I even used their yeast. I'm considering a range of approaches to using the Spunding valve. Bunging the tank at 1 to 2 Plato, remaining in fermentation, which is pretty standard, what you'll hear. Bunging the tank once I pass sulfur during fermentation, or meaning once that fermentation bucket stops blowing off sulfur. Bunging the tank immediately upon the tank being filled. And then finally, pressurizing the tank as soon as the tank is filled, right? So there's some different options there. Any thoughts on this? I don't want to hamper yeast health. And so this is the real, this is the real thing. When you're ordering a liquid pitch, you need to get multiple pitches out of it. Kind of break-even point tends to be around 3 batches, maybe 3 total batches off of 1 pitch that'll start getting you in the range of what it would cost for dry yeast, maybe 4 batches. But so that's the lens at which I'm looking at this through. Obviously, I want to make the best beer possible. I want to see impact of, will this make a cleaner beer? Will this make a better foam, just a more integrated beer? You hear all these different ways people kind of discuss these intangibles when it comes to Spunding, September and June. Reply goes as such. If good yeast health is the goal, then I'd recommend Spunding only once you're 1 to 2 Plato from terminal gravity. So 4 to 8 gravity points remaining in fermentation. Basically, head pressure means more CO2 stays in solution. Obviously, that's the point of Spunding. And CO2 is toxic to yeast. More time in contact with more CO2 means less happy yeast. Interestingly, sulfur can be a byproduct of stressed yeast. So you could theoretically, quote unquote, pass sulfur, as I said before, or get to a point where it has blown off, engage the Spunding valve, then as a result of the extra CO2 in solution, impose enough stress on the yeast that more sulfur is produced in the tail end of fermentation that doesn't blow off. This is why I'm telling you this dude's a baller, okay? All this being said, different strains seem to tolerate head pressure or increased CO2 levels differently, but we don't really have a way of measuring or quantifying this different tolerance. Good notes and trusting your observation goes a long way when balancing Spunding and yeast management. Dude, that's an answer. All right. I love talking with Alex. Alex Gruber. He first of all, you can almost hear how into the answer he is, like as he's typing it to you. Dude, I love getting answers like that. Kind of back to this discussion of spunding again. I can see some potential benefits of many different approaches with using the spunding valve. I think we know that when fermentation happens under pressure, you can have a reduction in potentially yeast character being expressed, right? So in the lens of brewing lager beer, that might sound good, but you can run this risk even if you get past the point to where you feel as if your yeast has expressed the sulfur and it's blown off of the fermentation. It can actually start kicking sulfur again potentially if you raise that overall pressure level in the tank, essentially increase that CO2 saturation, which is something that can stress the yeast. So I thought that was really interesting. I thought that was really interesting. Now, all you pros out there, I'm sure there's some of you that are spunding that are bunging the tank up front and letting that run up to 12 to 15 psi, and you're letting it blow off there, and you have great results, and you can repitch off of it. I don't think that's really like the point of this discussion is saying one thing is impossible, what one thing isn't. It's just potentially some rules of thumb and what may come from them. I will say I would love to have, this is the kind of thing that really makes me want to have like a high level. And so when I'm saying high level, I'm talking about like those Instagram hot boy homebrew setups that have, you know, like the pressurizable conical, like the 1-barrel conical that's glycol chilled, pressurizable. It's got all, you know, it's carb stone and all that stuff. I would love to run some experiments on something like that. And, you know, off of a 15-barrel system like I'm working on, you know, have one extra barrel of wort in there, just pitch one less into your big fermenter, and then run 1 barrel into, you know, a 1-barrel tank and run all those different spunding options, right? Just bung it from the beginning and wait for it to build and blow off. Bung it, pressurize it, and then let it run. Or bunging early, you like kind of mid-process, right? Or a little bit later, kind of pushing it, playing with temperature variables. That's something that's exciting to me. And I'm going to say at some point in my career, that's going to be some stuff that I'm really going to play with. Because some of these things, like, you just have to get your hands on them and do them. You know, I think that's kind of the exciting thing about what we're doing with beer, right? Is, you know, you can always know the conventional wisdom with something, but until you get in and start doing your thing with your practices, your yeast handling practices, and everything like that, your brew house practices, you really don't know how it's going to work for you until you start doing it. So yeah, I mean, this whole spunding thing it's going to be a little bit of a journey for me. This first beer that I do, I'm always paranoid about sulfur with it, but I am going to do kind of the more recommended, you know, bunging the tank with 1 to 2 Plato left. However, I may receive less advantage out of that because I ramp up my lager ferments. Some of you may be uncomfortable with that, but it's a process that I've had a fair amount of success with. So, you know, if I'm finishing that lager up around 65, how much benefit am I getting of getting that fermentation of the last 1 or 2 points Plato, or the last 4 to 8 points of gravity? But we'll see, man. I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, that's kind of the wrap on what I have going on with spunding. And thank you to the illustrious Alex Gruber of Imperial Yeast for the timely answer, the timely and enthusiastic answer. All right, everybody, thank you so much for watching. If you feel as if you got any value out of the video, please like and subscribe. There are also other videos that you can watch. They're gonna maybe be over here or over here. Appreciate you watching.